In June 2025, as the war with Israel reaches a fever pitch, Iran's supreme leader Ayatollah Khamenei makes a decision that will reverberate through history. In a move both desperate and calculated, he cedes full wartime control to the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, or IRGC, effectively placing the fate of the nation in the hands of its most powerful military institution. This is not just a tactical shift, it's a seismic transformation of Iran's power structure, one that signals the regime's willingness to do whatever it takes to survive. For decades, Khamenei has walked a tightrope, balancing the interests of Iran's fractious political factions, reformists, hardliners, technocrats, and the powerful clerical establishment. But now, as the nation faces existential threat, the calculus has changed. Political maneuvering and ideological debates are set aside. The supreme leader's priority is clear: survival trumps politics, and unity under military command is the only path forward. Israeli airstrikes pound Tehran and other strategic sites, targeting not just military assets, but the very heart of Iran's leadership. In response, Khamenei and his closest advisors, including his family, are forced to abandon the public eye, retreating deep underground to a fortified bunker. This unprecedented move leaves a power vacuum at the top, compelling the supreme leader to hand over operational command to the IRGC's top brass. The IRGC, originally created to defend the Islamic Revolution and wage ideological warfare, now finds itself wielding more power than ever before. With moderates and reformists sidelined, the military's hardline commanders take center stage, locking Iran into a relentless cycle of escalation. Civilian voices are drowned out as the IRGC consolidates its grip, and the country's future is shaped by those most committed to confrontation. This transfer of authority streamlines military decision-making, allowing for rapid responses and coordinated defense. But it comes at a steep price. Iran, once ruled by a complex interplay of clerics and politicians, now teeters on the edge of becoming a full-fledged military junta. The delicate balance of power is shattered, and the IRGC's influence permeates every level of government and society. With the IRGC's uncompromising ideology at the helm, the prospect of diplomacy fades into the background. Negotiations and back-channel talks are abandoned. Instead, confrontation and military posturing become the new normal, both at home and abroad. The world watches as Iran closes ranks, its leadership more isolated and determined than ever. The precedent is set. The military's grip on power may prove irreversible, fundamentally reshaping not only Iran's internal dynamics, but also the balance of power across the Middle East. Regional alliances shift, neighboring states brace for instability, and the specter of a militarized Iran looms large over the region's future. As the dust settles, the fate of the Islamic Republic now rests with its most uncompromising generals, men whose vision for Iran is forged in the crucible of war, and whose decisions will echo for generations to come. Subscribe, like, and share Cosmo Academia. The current war erupted in a single shattering night after Israel launched Operation Rising Lion, a meticulously planned, sweeping assault targeting Iran's most sensitive nuclear sites and command centers. The world watched in disbelief as the first reports trickled in, signaling the start of a conflict that had long been feared but never fully imagined. The operation was not just a military maneuver, it was a calculated gamble, a desperate attempt to reshape the balance of power in the region before it was too late. In the dead of night, 60 Israeli jets roared across hostile skies, flying deep into Iranian territory. Their mission: to cripple Iran's nuclear infrastructure and missile capabilities in a single decisive blow. Explosions lit up the desert as bombs struck hardened bunkers and research labs, sending shockwaves through the Iranian leadership. The strikes were designed to set back Iran's nuclear ambitions by years, if not decades, and to send a clear message that Israel would not tolerate a nuclear-armed adversary on its doorstep. Prime Minister Netanyahu addressed the world, calling the operation a preemptive act of self-defense. For Israel, he declared, a nuclear Iran was a red line that could not be crossed. The government framed the attack as a necessary step to ensure the survival of the Israeli state, rallying the nation behind a cause that had united its people for generations. Yet the decision was not without controversy, both at home and abroad, as leaders weighed the risks of igniting a wider regional war. Iran's response was swift and ferocious. Within hours, ballistic missiles rained down on Israeli cities, targeting both military and civilian sites. The Iron Dome missile defense system intercepted many, but not all. Some missiles broke through, causing destruction and panic in the heart of Israel. Air raid sirens wailed through the night as families scrambled for shelter, the reality of war crashing down on ordinary lives. The Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, now firmly in control of Iran's military response, made it clear that any attack on Iranian soil would be met with overwhelming force. The streets of Tehran filled with soldiers and armored vehicles, as commanders vowed to defend the nation's honor and sovereignty at any cost. The rhetoric grew fiercer, with both sides warning of consequences that could engulf the entire region. As the days passed, both nations became locked in a brutal rhythm of strikes and counter-strikes. City streets emptied at the sound of sirens, with civilians huddled in bomb shelters, uncertain when, or if, it would be safe to emerge. The psychological toll mounted, as fear and anxiety gripped millions on both sides of the border. In war rooms and government offices, military commanders and hardline politicians debated their next moves. Each side sought to inflict enough pain to force the other to back down. But with uncompromising leaders in command, the prospect of de-escalation seemed increasingly remote. The world watched anxiously, fearing that a single miscalculation could trigger an even wider catastrophe. The war has moved from the shadows into the open, transforming once bustling cities into battlefields. The devastation is mounting, and the powder keg that is the Middle East has finally exploded, with consequences that are only beginning to unfold. The war's true cost is measured in shattered lives. In Iran, over 220 killed and 1,200 wounded, many women and children, overwhelm hospitals and devastate families. Israeli cities too have suffered, dozens dead, hundreds wounded, and a population living in constant fear. Mass evacuations like in Tehran's District 18 create waves of internal refugees. Schools are closed, businesses shuttered, and daily life is replaced by the wail of sirens and the thud of explosions. Civilians on both sides bear the brunt, their futures stolen by a war they never chose. Precision weapons offer no real protection when urban centers are the battlefield. The cycle of grief and anger grows with every strike, ensuring the scars of this conflict will last for generations. Israel's decapitation strikes have killed key IRGC commanders, including Ali Shadmani, creating chaos at the top of Iran's military. These were not just figureheads, they were the architects of Iran's regional strategy. Their loss leaves inexperienced officers scrambling to fill the void, weakening Iran's war effort just as the IRGC takes full control. Khamenei's inner circle is shrinking, isolating the supreme leader and increasing the risk of miscalculation. For Israel, these strikes degrade Iran's capabilities, but also risk provoking desperate, unpredictable retaliation. A cornered regime may lash out, escalating the conflict or activating regional proxies. The leadership vacuum in Tehran is as dangerous as any missile. Subscribe, like, and share Cosmo Academia. In response to mounting tensions, the United States has dramatically increased its military footprint in the region, signaling both strength and resolve. Advanced fighter jets roar into the skies, their presence a clear message to both allies and adversaries. These aircraft, equipped with cutting-edge technology, are capable of rapid deployment and precision strikes, underscoring America's commitment to maintaining air superiority and deterring aggression. Alongside these air assets, the formidable USS Nimitz carrier group has been dispatched to the Persian Gulf, bringing with it a powerful naval force. Warships and support vessels maneuver in tight formation, projecting American power across the region's strategic waterways and ensuring freedom of navigation. President Trump's rhetoric has grown increasingly uncompromising. He demands nothing less than Iran's full compliance and surrender, vowing severe consequences for any hostile actions. His public statements are designed to send a message of unwavering resolve, both to Iran's leadership and to the world. The president has also issued stark warnings, making it clear that even Iran's most fortified bunkers, including those believed to shelter Supreme Leader Khamenei, are within the reach of American military might. This posturing is meant to sow doubt among Iran's top brass about the safety of their most secure locations. At the heart of the standoff is the U.S. insistence that Iran must never acquire nuclear weapons. American officials argue that a nuclear-armed Iran would destabilize the entire Middle East, spark a regional arms race, and threaten global security. Intelligence reports suggest that Iran's nuclear program continues in heavily fortified sites like Fordow, deep underground and shielded from conventional attacks. U.S. officials have hinted at the possibility of targeted strikes on these hardened facilities if diplomatic efforts fail. Meanwhile, American embassies across the region are on lockdown, with heightened security measures in place. Diplomatic staff are on alert, and non-essential personnel have been evacuated from high-risk areas. US forces remain on high alert, prepared for any escalation. Troops are conducting regular patrols, fortifying positions, and coordinating closely with regional allies to respond to any threat at a moment's notice. In turn, Iran has issued its own threats, vowing to target US bases and assets if America intervenes directly. Iranian commanders have mapped out potential targets, raising the specter of a rapid and devastating exchange. The risk of a wider war looms large, as any miscalculation could quickly spiral into open conflict, endangering millions of civilians and destabilizing the region. The United States now finds itself in a dual role, both shield and provocation. Every move is scrutinized, and the next decision could tip the balance, plunging the region into chaos or steering it back from the brink. The line between deterrence and direct involvement grows thinner by the hour, as military forces on both sides brace for what could come next. In Washington, every choice carries enormous weight. The decisions made in the coming days will not only shape the fate of this conflict, but could redefine America's role in the Middle East for years to come. The world watches in alarm as the war escalates, with G7 leaders calling for de-escalation, calls drowned out by the sounds of war. Gulf states like Saudi Arabia and the UAE fear spillover, as an empowered IRGC could target oil infrastructure and shipping lanes. The IRGC's control signals a shift to a more aggressive, proxy-driven foreign policy, threatening to drag Lebanon, Syria, and others into the conflict. International bodies are powerless. The UN's calls for ceasefire go unheeded. The conflict is a test of global security architecture, with containment now the urgent priority. The region teeters between a contained war and a regional inferno. Subscribe, like, and share Cosmo Academia. The risk of a wider regional war is now immediate. Every strike and counterstrike raises the stakes, with the IRGC's hardliners making de-escalation unlikely. US involvement, even defensively, could trigger Iranian attacks on American bases, risking a three-way war. Iran's proxy forces, Hezbollah, militias in Syria and Iraq, could open new fronts, overwhelming Israel and destabilizing neighbors. A multi-front war could collapse fragile states and ignite sectarian violence across the region. Iran's ability to threaten the Strait of Hormuz endangers global oil supplies, risking economic crisis far beyond the Middle East. The specter of escalation is no longer regional, it's global, with peace and prosperity hanging in the balance. The world stands on the edge of a much larger catastrophe. For ordinary Iranians, war means fear, deprivation, and repression. Airstrikes and shortages of food and medicine have made daily life a struggle for survival. The IRGC's grip tightens, crushing dissent and censoring information under the guise of national security. Hopes for reform are extinguished as militarized rule takes hold. Exiled opposition figures like Reza Pahlavi call for uprising, but the risks are immense. Iranians face a painful choice: rally around the regime or resist at great peril. The nation's fate will be decided not just on the battlefield, but in the hearts of its people. The Middle East is being reshaped by this conflict, with Iran's transformation under the IRGC threatening a new era of instability. The risk of a wider war remains high, with hardliners in Tehran, Jerusalem, and Washington narrowing the path to peace. A single miscalculation could redraw borders, destabilize energy markets, and unleash a refugee crisis. International diplomacy has failed to prevent this crisis. Only unprecedented cooperation might contain it now. The region stands at a crossroads: fragile peace or catastrophic war. The choices made in the coming days will determine the fate of millions. The world holds its breath as the future of the Middle East hangs in the balance. Subscribe, like, and share Cosmo Academia.